are back today with our Patricia, our Amy, and we have Angel with us today. And Angel is a pyramid specialist. I suppose that's what we call you, isn't it? That's his heart chakra.
I call myself a rock scientist.
Oh, very cool.
Anyway, very quickly, is Maryland very far from you, Angel? Just asking.
Maryland? Well, not really when you look at the whole size of things. I'm right by Philadelphia, Allentown.
Oh yeah. Well, it's not too far. I guess it'd be about a maybe 4-hour drive.
Oh,
yeah.
That's nothing where you are, is it, though? That's down the road, isn't it? Amy's just down the road from you.
Yeah, except for the high.
Did she cut out?
Oh, Amy? Occasionally, she'll be back in a sec. Amy? Oh, there you go.
It's gone.
Yeah, her internet keeps dropping her off. Thank you, Google.
Does this sound worse or better?
This sounds good.
Okay, then I'll leave this.
Oh, you're all right now. What it was is, guys, we've been playing like musical chairs. We've been dropping off, coming back on. But Angel, there was a bit of an echo, but he's back on that one without an echo. Well, we'll carry on for a little bit. Hopefully Amy will be back in a second. Anyway, it's been a little while. We're in 2020.
Well, luckily, on the Giza Plateau, there's been a lot of new explorations. They've opened up area, and they've. I had a bunch of whiteboard
She's back.
markers. Hey, welcome back.
Can I just say, now Amy's back, because I wanted to say it when she's here. This is like Amy's first pyramid hangout.
Yes.
And I don't know everything, but I've known you for a while. So there's a few things I actually would like you to talk about when you've done your bit.
Sure.
Because they still amaze me.
Yeah. I mean, questions I can shoot off with?
Okay, I was telling Amy the other day that not many people realise that the pyramids aren't all on the same level, that they're at different levels.
That was actually a quite interesting shock to me as well.
Yeah, and I was telling Amy, I'll just put the camera on you because I know you've got your whiteboard there. I was telling Amy that basically that if you could get a snapshot and see inside them, that there's bits inside them that do line up, even though they're on different levels. Over to you, Angel.
Well, that's because I think the whole thing is one big system. If you're familiar with a phase separator.
Oh, should we just say what we're talking about? The Giza pyramids.
Giza pyramids. Went on a phase. Oh, that's annoying. The light right there. Oh well. A phase separator is something where they dump whatever it is, sludge. My whiteboard pen is not very good. Try another one.
Yeah, we couldn't see that, Angel. That's better.
There you go. They dump like sludge into something. And what it does is it has where the liquids will float up and come down, and the heavy sludge will fall and come out. And a lighter liquid might come up and go out and exit on the side there. It's called a phase separator. Separates the different phases of the substance coming in, the sludge or whatever. So I think the Giza pyramid is really set up to be much like that.
Is it my understanding that you believe in some way that it was doing a myriad of things, but one of the things was filtering water?
Well, I don't think it was filtering it. I think it was utilizing it as the conduit to get things done. And honestly, until I get to talk to a real physicist that understands exactly how some of the elements work in certain environments, I'm not going to know what it's doing, because it's like looking at a windmill or a mill in general. You can see where they dumped something in, it grinded it up, put it to somewhere, it mashed it, it mixed it, laid it flat. But until you know exactly what it's doing, how when you cook it, it rises and stuff like that, I don't know what the end product is. I'm not sure if it's
even still.
well.
I think you've changed
so
your mind a little bit, haven't you, about it as time's gone on?
Well, that's
Even
because
knowing you, yeah.
I get new information. Luckily, they explore areas. Bren Forrester has done a lot of great videos where he goes there and publicly shares his things to try to get people to go on a tour with him. And he's showing pieces that the Giza Antiquities, out of sight, out of mind. They don't know what it is. It doesn't make sense to the tomb pyramid theory. So they don't put it in the brochure. They don't put it on their documentaries. They just don't talk about it. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And the fact that it does exist, I incorporated it into the model because it's part of the structure, part of the whole plateau, which is one big machine. Now, we really didn't think of machines on that massive scale till we got companies like Halliburton and stuff like that. We started doing huge hydroelectric dams. RCA did a thing where they took dozens of acres and made one huge antenna. If you watch Eric Dollard, you familiar with Eric Dollard? If not, you might want to familiarize with him. He's called Tesla 2.0. He's a old guy, beard, really is very knowledgeable on electricity and how it kind of has its waves and its peaks and valleys and how it feedback, all that sort of stuff. But things like that, you don't really know what it's doing. When you look at a piece of it, it makes no sense. You walk into a middle of a hydroelectric dam, just by looking at one piece of it, you have no idea what it is. Walk into a place that does newspapers. You got all the folding and printing and stuff like that. You just look at one piece of it, you don't see the whole finished product. We've been looking at the Giza pyramid like through blinders, not taking into account the rest of the plateau. And I think if we were to actually model it in a 3D model,
because it's more like a motherboard sort of thing.
Yeah, it is kind of like a motherboard, and we're staring at like the video chip, and we say, "Oh, it's got a really cool video chip," but you're ignoring the memory and the processor, and the hard drive, and the power supply, and all the other pieces that go together to make the whole machine.
Angel, can I say something? We can only see a bit of your face. Well, we get like a quarter of you coming in the picture.
Well, I was trying more to focus on the whiteboard when I start drawing. I have this isn't set up.
We like seeing your face, Angel. Yeah. So even after all these years, you still don't quite want to put your thing. I tell you what, something else as well is we're looking at it. God only knows what they took out of these things or took away that we don't know that they've taken away. You know what I mean? Bits that were inside it. And
well, I'm not 100% sure that there were many pieces that they took out. They like to tell you that there are pieces missing because they conjure up ideas of what they think it should have been. But that's like if, again, you look at an apple pie, you're looking at a bucket of apples and you're like, oh, it's going to, I can't think of something to put an analogy to it, but they came up with an idea, could be bright, intelligent scholars, great ideas, but they didn't know the pieces that we didn't discover until like the last half of the century. They sent little robots up shafts. They've done ground penetrating radar. They've found the Osiris shaft. People have videos where they've walked through it. You got that 18-year-old guy that climbed up the surface of it. There's somebody who's climbed up at least two of the structures. The smaller one, the one they, Marrakech, I don't know. They give him funny names. But
there's something else as well, isn't it? Because everybody's going the 3 pyramids, but there's all the little pyramids there, the little ones.
There are, and yeah. I do think they all play a part. And it's when you look at them as a whole that you get to see it. And also,
I agree with you though, because don't forget, from the air you get to see all those things on the ground. You know, those things where people don't really like going there because people have used them to wee in and whatever yes. They are. You know where I mean? What's that part?
Yeah.
That bit there looks like a motherboard and things something, doesn't it? It just does, whatever that is.
Actually, too. They do visually look like a motherboard. Now, I'm not sure what those, what do they call them? Mastabas or something like that. I'm not sure what they actually do. They're square and rectangular, and they usually have a square rectangular hole that goes down a bit. They may go down and shoot off in different directions. We don't actually know, unless somebody actually wants to take the time to excavate it.
There is a tunnel underneath there, isn't there? Because Brian Forrest has been in it.
Tons of tunnels. They don't all interconnect. Might have been,
yeah. Oh, don't they?
I think they were all like conduits on a motherboard. And the liquid, which I believe was water, on the plateau, used them as conduits, just like we do on a motherboard, where we use silver tracing or copper tracing. You know, we have multi-layer motherboards. It goes down, shoots across, comes back up. Another one that goes over. You know, multi-layer motherboards. And the conduits were used in the same way to get certain pools to short together. And the conduits underneath, I think, are the evidence of that. And if we were to actually take the time to send little rovers down there, map it out, print it out, or model it, you know, it would take a lot of the speculation out, and we could actually get true answers.
Do you find it frustrating to still not know maybe what it is? Well, not you just don't want to put your name on what it is because it could be a couple of things. But is it frustrating?
It could be a couple of things. Yeah, I can tell you pieces of what the structure does, but the actual answer of what it is, I would like to set that environment up, either again in a CAD or a physical model, and see what nature gives as the answer.
Yeah, for everybody listening, what Angel would really like to do is build his own pyramid.
Yeah, I'd like to eventually get my hands on a 3D CAD, map the structure, get my hands on a CAD that has what they call an earth engine, you know, which will let water flow, water drip, evaporation, condensation, and will actually act like it would in nature, and see what the result is. Now, one thing that I love to point out is the CAD software will only do what is programmed. Like you heat water, it might boil, steam off, condensate, and come down. But in reality, nature gives other answers. That's where like people like Heidman and Fleischman, the guys who did cold fusion, and were said, oh, no, it doesn't work. Same people who said that Stan Meyer's water car didn't work. But I've luckily bumped into people in my life that have actually utilized these types of technologies.
You know that, don't you, with the fact that they lie so much about so many things and cover it up, that in a sense you can't believe a lot of what any history or whatever anyway, or even what people said, because you don't know if they actually said it or they've now said it because they've made history look like when it wasn't like that anyway. Because the pyramids were not burial chambers, were they, Angel?
No, I don't think they were. Nothing truly shows anything about a burial chamber.
Imagine how many films they've made about them. They've been burial chambers.
Oh yeah, lots of films, lots of documentaries, but they were all based off of stories, ideas, and they didn't take into account the physical structure. A lot of the stories that they come up with pulleys and stuff, you put your eyes on the structure, and luckily nowadays with people take enough snapshots and put them on different websites that we can actually get eyes on the structure, that you sit there and you look at it and you're like, where would the other side of the pulley be? Where would it's just the story falls apart when you look at the physical evidence.
Do you believe there were other pyramids there? Because they do talk about one, and you can almost find what looked like there could have been one, and then there was one that was used in a film. It's sort of like you've got the entrance in, and now they use it as a dump bit right there, don't they? But the military have got it.
Well, I sent you a photo about 6 months ago. I don't remember.
Yeah.
That was taken from a helicopter that shot down across. It was like sitting up here, and you had the three pyramids, and the shot came like this, and you could see, because this pyramid here, one of the little ones, is actually quite tall. And when you look at it coming down from an angle, it looks like a fourth pyramid. And I do believe it's a physical part of the structure and could be mistaken, especially if the one thing that you were looking at a long time ago was a drawing. And when somebody's been there and they see the four largest structures on the plateau, and then they sketch it out, they're going to sketch it out. They're going to include that one because it is fairly large in comparison to like ones that are, what is this, 480 feet tall, 490 feet tall. I think it's 450 because the top is actually flat. This one's like 230, 215 feet tall. This one's still quite tall. So, if you walked the plane and then sat there when you got back to wherever you got back to, and you're sketching it out, you're going to include what you saw, what your mind remembers.
I actually meant another pyramid out there, not right next to that one. So the fourth pyramid could be that one there. So you don't think there's any more pyramids further out? What about the one that was used in the film that looked like they were building it or they were halfway through it and it's not finished, but they used it in a film in the 50s, didn't they?
Well, anything can be used in a film. Green screening.
Oh, you don't know if that one's there, you mean?
Right. It may not.
Oh, that might.
Well, I've seen lots of pictures.
Lie.
I've seen Google Maps and where you put the guy on the thing and walk around. Oh, it's another thing you could do. You could visit the plateau using the Google guy, one of the guys with the backpack with the camera on him. 3D camera, luckily, 360 camera. And you could walk around the plateau and actually put your eyes there as if you're there. These are things people couldn't do 10 years ago. 20 years ago, it would have been a pipe dream. Today, you could do it right now. We could we'd probably get violation for some sharing laws. But you could pull up Google Maps, drop your little yellow guy there, and walk around the plateau yourself. These are things that anybody can do. And when you take the time to look at it, it really is if you take the time to look at it and ignore the story, let your mind paint its own picture, I think you'd be quite amazed as compared to the stories we've been told, because they don't match up. The physical plateau doesn't really match the story.
Angel, we did go on a hangout on that 360. Do you remember? And
yeah, a couple of times we did that.
I'm going to ask Amy in a minute a question because, or even Patricia, because obviously like to ask their thoughts. But we did it, and then I was really shocked that there was the pyramid, and you were showing us. But under the pyramid, there were still these great big slabs in the ground, not everywhere, but a part of it had these great big slabs, enormous great slabs, which go under the pyramid.
Yes. I believe there was like a structure around it, a bottom of a retaining pool. There are also different areas where there were pressure releases and things like that that worked with the weights of the water liquids to relieve certain liquids. It's just like the separator I was talking about. A water would come through and flow across, the sludge would fall and settle and then get scraped out because you want the water to go through and you want the sludge to get scraped out. So you have fairly clean water that might get dumped into a river or something like that, but you don't want the sludge to get dumped into the river. You know, things of that nature.
Just asking then, Amy,
Yeah.
what do you make of all this then?
Wow, it's really mind blowing. One thing that I found really interesting that Angel said was that the pyramids were not burial chambers, because that is what I thought they were. That was the main thing I thought that pyramids were the burial chambers, and I thought that they even had my sister was telling me they would even put signs or something, or saying, like, warning people don't go into the pyramids, or you'll maybe have a curse, except that maybe it wasn't going to be a curse, it would be some kind of fungus or something like that.
Love to tell these stories. They sell books. They sell tourism.
Yeah.
You know, they have a cash cow. They really don't want to reinvent the wheel because they might lose their cash cow, and they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But if you ever physically get them and you look at the size that some of these things are only about a meter and a half tall, how would they get a burial progression?
Right. Yeah. But that was all we ever I haven't studied pyramids or anything, but that was the main thing that we were under the impression that it were. So yeah,
there were tombs. I'm not going to argue with it. I'm not going to say there were.
Yeah,
they were on the other side of a hill, and they're in what they call the Valley of the King.
Mm-hmm.
And there were dozens of tombs, lots of gold, treasures. One thing I love to point out, they had honey that was thousands of years old. Still could eat it.
Wow.
Honey's a natural preservative.
Yeah.
Just not the stuff you buy at the store today.
I've heard that, though, that honey lasts a long time.
Yes, it's nature's preservative. You could also put it on cuts and stuff. Just don't use the stuff that you buy at the store that has high fructose corn syrup and it's gelatinous goo with colors and flavoring. No nature bit in there. You know, it doesn't have that bees going collecting all the pollen. They just make something that smells, looks, and tastes like honey. In fact, like maple syrup, you can get maple syrup from a tree. You tap a tree, take the sap, boil it off, and then you're left with this goo that's maple syrup that has all the vitamins and minerals and everything that the tree would use to live over the winter. Lots of nutrition in there.
Wow.
Or you can go to the store and buy maple syrup that's made with chemicals to taste and look like honey. Costs a lot less, get a consistent product. The tree doesn't always taste the same every year. Doesn't even taste the same every month. And companies like a consistent product. So if they use chemicals, they can sell a product that is great. You know, one thing that gets me, you can go to the store and you can get Parmesan cheese flavored stuff that's made with like not soy. What is it? But it's like some filler, and they put like cheese flavoring and real cheese flavor, but there's no cheese in there.
Right.
So you get honey that isn't honey, cheese that isn't cheese, maple syrup that isn't maple syrup. We're eating chemicals, and you wonder why we get sick. When
Yes.
nature provides, the bees are getting nutrition to feed the baby bees, to bring the baby bees to birth. Just like the egg has all the nutrition in it to make that little chicklet survive for 28 days until it pokes its nose.
Yes.
But you can go and buy the fake egg, no chickens involved, that tastes like egg, look like egg, that has like no nutrition. But it'll last in a refrigerator a lot longer than an egg, so people like it.
Right.
And you get the cheese, Velveeta cheese, that no cheese involved, no cows involved. Same thing. The milk is nutrition from the mother cow to give its baby cows to grow up.
Right.
So if you circumvent the cow, make something that's tastes like it, look like it, melts a lot easier in your microwave, you're happy. But you're losing all the nutrition.
Well, that plastic cheese doesn't melt. It just burns.
Well, A, I don't use a microwave. B, I don't use Velveeta.
Can I just ask then, Patricia, do you want to add anything right now?
No, I'm okay. No, I don't actually. You're saying about the pyramids not being raided and things like that. We don't know what's been taken out, but you can guarantee they will have taken something out, because didn't they take tombs out? The mummies and all that lot. I dare say.
I challenge you to find any pyramid that they found any mummified bodies. Any.
Wow.
The person that's supposed to have found Tutankhamun, I can't remember what his name was, but
but that was in the Valley of the King.
He only lived up the road from me in Highclere Castle with his wife, and she was a what's one of those families, the Rockefellers.
Yeah.
Right, who was a Rockefeller?
No, not Rockefeller. Begins with R. I can't remember what they're called. That big
Rothschild.
family.
Rothschild.
That's it.
Yeah.
She was a Rothschild, and she was a
lady. The two of them have now merged.
Right. But can I just say, when I found pictures of him, I never saw him standing next to a tomb, even though he's supposed to have found Tutankhamun. I never found. Did you find any pictures of him with the tombs?
I myself have never looked.
Okay, but I didn't. When I looked, I couldn't find. There's pictures of him like supposed to be him, and there he is at the entrance of something. But you never see him. Aha! Look, this is it here. You don't see any of it. You just see him maybe standing.
He could have also funded the exploration. Therefore, he found it. But he may not have been the one that did the foot traffic.
Oh, that's a good point. Yes.
Like 3M invented the sticky note. But was it really 3M? Or was it a guy you don't know?
Yes, good point.
Well, we haven't even worked out quite what they are. Actually, Angel, as you're on here, there is something I want to go back to.
Sure.
I'm not sure whether I've sort of worked it out. It's what people are seeing over the water, but it's not happening over water. It's actually happening over land. But what it is it makes everything look bigger in the camera. So it makes it look like it's closer. That's what I think is happening over the water. But I've told you this before, but I've just been putting it out on my other channel. When I went to Silbury Hill, which we know is a pyramid, we were standing looking at it, and wow, there it was. And just say there's a field in front of you, and you put it into 4 sections, and then the pyramid is in the top right-hand corner, but it takes up a good quarter of that field, but it's over there in the corner. We walked around it, and we went back to the car, and from this fence where we first were looking, where we were filming, to the car, could have been about quarter of a mile. But as we were talking, we just looked over at the pyramid, and we suddenly thought, oh my God, look at it. from where we were standing at the car, this pyramid now had grown by about 4 or 5. It was enormous. What I'm saying is, we walked back over to the fence, and there it was at the fence, over there in the corner of the field. But at the car, it looked like it was taking up about at least half the field, and it was actually much bigger, and it almost looked like the top of it had changed shape. We filmed it. It was enormous. How does that happen? The further we got away from it, but not that far. What I'm saying is that there was trees, which at the fence, as you're walking up, you don't get to see them till you sort of go round the corner. But as you walk back to the car, it was above the trees. That's just such a phenomenon. I can't say the word. What's the word?
Phenomenal.
That's it. You said it. How does that work?
It also could have been your angle of view.
No.
Where, like, the tree is there and you pull back.
No.
I mean, I'd love to see your video, pictures, whatever.
Yeah, I'll send you the link to the video it's on.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, imagine what could be happening in this place where things are then sort of hidden and not hidden. Just it's happening. That's not them. That's naturally happening. I just still, like you're saying about the pyramids, we don't have any idea how this place works. If this pyramid could do this, which I've got the proof, which I'll send you the video link, and you're not even sure after all this research, you think you know what it is, but until you know what it is, you're not going to put your signature on it. And like we're living
I know
in a
what
place
pieces of it do. I don't know what nature does in the environment that it sets up. Just like,
you mean
if
because
I didn't know,
you only have theory at the moment. It's theory.
Well, you could say it's theory, but if you were to build the physical model and run it, I mean, you know, when you boil something, it evaporates, condensates. When it cools, drips down. I mean, that's pretty black and white. So that part I can get, and it creates a less than normal atmosphere, a vacuum, if you will.
I've got something to say to you.
Sure.
I have got something to say to you because since I've been, my research, the past I called Tataria only because it fits all these buildings we don't know, like, you know, they're everywhere with the pillars on. But I lived near Brighton. My parents come from that area, you know, very close. One's Hove, one's Rottingdean, so a couple of miles outside of Brighton. My Hove adjoins Brighton. But I had to find out the history of this place myself. My mum and dad never talked about this. In the 1800s, about 1893, there was an electric train in the sea. Basically, it went for 3 miles. It was like a commuter, and they actually modelled some of the film War of the Worlds off these things because they weren't stilts, but they had great big long legs with like a boat on the top. But the tracks were like 18 feet apart, and it was the biggest track. But what I'm trying to say is that when the tide was out, then it would have been this sort of long thing going up and down this track. But when the tide was in, the water came up 3/4 of the way up its legs. And then basically the electricity came to get this thing going. They put it through the water and it didn't electrify the people. So what I'm saying is that's why the water, because you think water, it still could have been used to make electricity.
You know that you can sit on a power line, just like birds do. But you have to get to the power line without shorting the ground. If you watch the high voltage people, the high voltage electric people, they come up to it with a chopper. They put a wire to short the chopper to the voltage of the wire, and then the person can climb to the wire, and then the chopper flies away and comes back a few hours later to pick them up. As long as that person doesn't in some way extend himself to ground, he'll be fine. Because what kills you is the electricity running through you, not being being
Well, this
electrified.
train ran from about 1893 to about 1902. No one ever got electrocuted. On the
Right.
video, they said, "Oh, well, we didn't have safety and what's the name then," but it worked for fine because people, they haven't told us the truth about water, electricity, about tides. I mean, there must be some kind of electricity in the water, and that causes the tides. It's electricity in the water, but we can handle that. We can get in the water. It's a different kind of electricity. Do you see what I mean? We don't understand exactly where we live, but this train was amazing. I'm so gobsmacked, and they modelled, so I say, part of War of the Worlds off of those things because that is War of the Worlds, those big things on legs.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was amazed at the tide coming in and out and push them over. But I've seen them; they were really tall. They looked like boats on stilts.
They must have had great big weights though on those things that were running up and down the
Well,
tracks. But I know what you mean.
each of the feet were pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been pretty settled, the water, because, imagine it. We're getting in and say, hey, wait, we're actually in the water. We're not a train anymore. We're a boat. Because it wasn't that this thing was ever knocked off or the tides were too strong. I don't remember. There's not enough history, but you don't read lots. Well, it couldn't happen this day. In 6 months of the year, they couldn't use it because the sea was too rough. You don't hear any of that about it.
Yeah, especially since supposedly the currents out there are some of the heaviest currents.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe that's what stopped it in the end was the sea. They decided, hey, it's getting a bit rough nowadays. We're gonna, who knows why they stopped it. But again, all the bits that we really would like to know, like you with the pyramids, have all been like they're being destroyed or changed or got rid of. So, just up the road from me is Bowood House. I know Winnes isn't pyramids, but Bowood House had another house called the Big House. The Big House wasn't as big as the wing that's left, and that was like a laboratory where in the 1700s the guy who worked out what oxygen was there. But there was a big house. It had pillars on it with the triangle top, and it was
So it was in
even
the 1600s.
I'm not sure, but anyway, it was there in the 1700s. Anyway, they used it in the Second World War to like a hospital. But in the 50s, they said they couldn't afford to look after it. They didn't just shut it up and leave it. They actually dismantled it. You'd never know there'd ever been a house there today. And you just think, wow. So they've been destroying these buildings for a long time, or bits that would make it easy for us to put things together. But I was
One
just
thing
so
I
shocked because people don't understand. Obviously, the electricity was okay in the water.
Yes, especially if it was. I mean, they probably had it somehow grounded where it shorted to. But I don't. I'd actually have to look at the base and how they got the electricity to. I don't think they just put electricity right into the water.
Well, I'm a bit shocked because very quickly, because this isn't really pyramids, but it had an Eden project in the 1850s. It has the oldest museum aquarium in the world. And then what it was is there was some flooding in the late 1800s. And then in a record book, Brighton had about 60 windmills around it. It's like more than, and it's like half of the country's windmills were sitting around Brighton. I'm wondering because they take water out of the ground as well. They weren't just for grinding. In Holland, they used them to reclaim land. I'm wondering whether they used the windmills because it had been flooded there. But Brighton, it looked like a palace. The whole thing. I mean, I don't just mean a palace. I mean the buildings. It looked like a palace without a wall. In the drawings they've got of all they're called Regency houses. But it's just like, and then I found out there was another pier. So it had three piers. It's got one now. So this really lovely pier, which was built in the late 1800s, has gone, and that was beautiful. And there was another one before that was built in about 1803. It started something like 1810, and it was basically the guy who made the suspension bridge. So basically, the pier was half a suspension bridge. But the man who invented suspension bridge built that thing and made it. They burrowed it 50 feet into the rocks, right? And then on the actual platform, there was this 12-inch marble that weighed tons. And then before they decided to go somewhere else, they used that to go because they said it was quicker to get to Paris from Brighton than it was to go up to Dover and across. So that's why they started to go across from Brighton rather a lot, because it was much quicker to get to Paris. Can you believe that? But it's like 12 ton of marble on the end of this pier. What? We were in rags. We had no roads, no trains. Yeah, they were struggling to get the coal off the ships to, like get the what do you call it, the food and all that off the ships for the people. Yet we could build this thing with great big steel. They're just so lying. But anyway, I'm just saying, we won't know. They've got rid of all these things, haven't they?
Well, yeah, just like we had electric cars before we had steam cars, before we had petrol cars. But couple of things I like to point out to people that you were kind of pointing out. The etymology of knowledge is we didn't even know about hydrogen gas until I think it was like the mid to late 1600s. We didn't really know about static electricity until Faraday and his glass rods. Supposedly Benjamin Franklin then came around, but that story also, in my opinion, doesn't hold a lot of water. But we didn't know about oxygen until about half a century after hydrogen. So when people looked at these large structures, 5, 6, 700 years ago, not knowing the internal structure, they didn't have little robots go up there. They didn't climb above the king's chamber. I don't think they even got down into the lower section. They didn't know the internal guts. So they came up with great stories with no knowledge of what else it could be. If you saw a Bunsen burn, but you didn't know what natural gas was, you could sit there and say it's a pretty looking candle or something.
When you say it that way, then you obviously moved into it and they didn't know what it was, to have to find a theory to work out what it was or give us an answer or say what it was. Yeah.
They came up with a great idea. They had found tombs on the other side of the mountain. So they just put 2 and 2 together. In fact, a lot of people, when I throw in their face, there was no mummies found in these things. They changed from it was a tomb to it was a memorial for the god, for the pharaoh. And he wasn't actually buried there. I'm like, well, this is great. Anybody could say that. But again, I think when you look at the structure with current day eyes, thinking of it as a machine, you can see the pieces. And give me a few minutes. I'll go over a bunch of them real quick.
Sure. Can I just say one thing though? That's just because the indoctrination of what the people have been told, and for years and years we've been watching these programs about how men have said how they thought they built them, and all these projects and all these videos and all these films. So is it you get cognitive? You can't help it. You have to go, no, that's not it, and then you go away and think about it. Okay, yes, it is. But I'm just saying, it's hard, like. But if you look at the pyramid, it's not done up like a building that was supposed to. It's not like that, is it? It's weird inside. It's not what you think it would be. I'm not going to say it isn't.
Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, Earth Ancients. He has a website and a couple other things, and he interviews people every now and then. He interviewed somebody just the other day, Dr. Dan Hillman. And luckily, Dr. Dan Hillman there got to play with pieces of the Giza pyramid. And he himself did science experiments, or he may have sent them off to a lab. And they confirmed, in their opinion, that some of the rock within the structure is fabricated, which is my belief, based on 3 or 4 other.
And what do you mean by that?
Fabricated, like cement.
Oh, right. Not fabricated in it's not real, just that it's cement in there.
Well, cement is real, but cement is not marble. Limestone is real, but if you could core sludge.
What is? Yeah. Are you still under the thing that the actual bricks? Well, what looked like those slabs were poured.
I believe that the majority of them, there
So
may be
just
some
for Amy,
organic rock.
Just explain to Amy what you think, because Amy doesn't know this. Amy.
Yes.
So basically, I was trying to tell you this the other day. Those, because we've even waking up and knowing it's something different. Then we were thinking, how did they cut those big blocks and drag them and get them there?
Get them to fit so perfectly together.
So what's your theory?
It's like if you walk to the Hoover Dam or the Aswan Dam or any dam, and you look at how they're all square pieces of cement.
Yeah.
And they all fit so well together. How did they cut those big chunks of cement and get them to fit together that you can't even put a piece of paper in?
Yeah.
They poured them.
So basically, they made them.
Yeah, 600, 700, 800 years.
Wow.
We knew about mortar, which was like mud, adobe blocks, but we didn't have cement yet.
Well, to be honest, Angel, we don't even know how old those Tataria buildings. I mean, that palace in Brighton was built in they said the 1700s. And do you know what they've done? If you painted it just like a Moscow building, you'd see it's like one of those. It's like in Moscow. It's the same building. So what's that doing in England? Let alone the pillars and the triangle top ones. I mean, they're everywhere. Now, one of the buildings in Brighton says 1700. It's actually older than Buckingham Palace, but it looks the same sort of period as Buckingham Palace, to be honest. But they're putting these dates on them, but we don't know. So these buildings could be even older, and we moved in on them. So it's the same with these things. Unfortunately, we don't have a time date, do we? Oh, we lost him. Oh, he will come back. We've had a bit of musical chairs tonight on this, haven't we? With
yes.
Google's been throwing everybody off. He'll come back in a second. We've got his arm.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It's really fascinating, isn't it, when you listen to someone he's so really serious about this, whether he's right or wrong or whatever, but he's so serious. He spent a lot of time, and he's got a website. In his other house, he had a big board up. He draws on it. He's got telephone numbers. You can get in touch with him, talk to him about it. He's really serious about it.
Yes. I wonder how he got so interested. Yes.
We were just talking about you, Angel. Hello? We can't hear you. Angel? Oh, look, he's got another problem still. So annoying. He'll be back.
Yeah. Yes, I'm just glad it's gone, that everything got straightened out from the beginning, that it's gone.
Yeah, we're on 48 minutes right now.
Yeah.
So we've done a bit.
Yes. But I wonder how he got so interested in his pyramid, like how he became intrigued and started studying and everything. It's pretty cool.
You can hear me with an echo now, can't you?
I think it's good now. Or
just go.
Is it good now?
Go for it, Angel.
Okay. Well, what I was going to say, you guys listen to the Glowbusters from time to time, I'm sure. And you know that Bob used to work on the, or maybe still does, on the high towers where they put microwave dishes and stuff like that. And he can tell you when you're on the top of the tower and you touch a wire that's grounded to ground and is insulated, and you're sitting up there and you touch it, you get a really big jolt of electricity. This is just a fact. This is a fact of nature. This is something that we really didn't know or utilize because other than somebody with a pitchfork shoving hay or somebody in a boat every now and then wouldn't really get a jolt of electricity. When they did, they would get a little shock. We didn't have Van de Graaff generators. We didn't have things that utilized electricity. And electricity was kind of an anomaly in the world, not something to be utilized. Somebody farming, agrarian type stuff, electricity was nothing. I mean, in fact, we used oil lamps and coal and stuff like that. But if you look at the structures, all three of them.
Hey, Angel, there is something I want to ask you. Are you going to explain what the positive, neutral, and negative?
Yes, that's where I was going.
Cool.
You get the three structures, and let's just say you have three identical structures. I don't know if you can see that because of the glare. Can you see it at all?
Yes.
No. All right, I'll draw it. You guys just have to work with what you work with. Three structures. At the top of them, if you were to stretch a wire between the two of them, if they were identical, then there would be very little difference between the ambient voltage here and here. But if you were to manipulate the voltage to be different, go from one extreme to the other, which is what these structures do. This structure, they truncate it so that the static electricity can't really escape into ambient.
Sorry about that. We got a little bit, everything got a bit slow. So Angel is going to tell us about what he's drawn on the board. Angel.
All right. If you had three identical structures in the middle of a field, anywhere in the field, it doesn't matter what field, at a high enough elevation, you're going to have a slightly different ambient static electricity at a higher elevation than you do at a lower elevation. If you take these three structures and you manipulate that to control and or make one more extreme than the other. For instance, the top of this structure, the center structure, is smooth at the top. And if you actually take the time to look at it, there's a great, I think it's Air Pano or Pano Air, P-A-N-O Air, or Pan Air, something like that. They take drones and they've flown them all around the structure. You get great video of it. But this structure has steps that are about 30 centimeters in size, and then they go to 40 centimeters, and then 50 centimeters, and then 60 centimeters. So the steps get progressively smaller as it goes up. This structure actually has waves where they're small in the 20 centimeter size. They get to 30, 40, 50, 60, and they go 40, 50, 60, 40, 50, 60, 70, things like that. They have waves on them. And a gentleman in the 1700s, or was it 1800s, was nice enough to map them out. And again, some gentlemen just recently did it with a 3D drone that had where they'd use stereo camera to do the same thing and map it out even better than the guy who did it in the 1800s. But if you go to surface.giza.com, you can pull up a map that shows you. And what this does is it takes the static electricity and it kind of pushes it so that it is a bubble about there on the structure. Now this is your control, and it's half the size of the other ones. Like I said, this one is about, at its top, 450 feet. This one at its top is about 480 feet. And this right here is about even. This one is between 215 and 230 feet. I keep getting different numbers because different people measure it from different spots on the ground. It would be nice to actually get a true answer, but for right now I have to work with the numbers I have to work with until I get somebody who actually goes out there that I can trust to survey it and get real numbers. This structure here is the one that has the internal guts. And what it does is it takes the static electricity and basically brings it down into the system through the manipulation of pieces and quarantines it into the Queen's chamber.
Could you just move the board just a little bit?
Is that better?
A little bit. That's it, to the left. That's
How's
it.
that?
Cool.
Okay. So what this does is in the bottom of the structure, they break water into two pieces. Hydrogen, which is piped up to the top into what they like to call the King's chamber. I like to call it the um, now I can't think of the name of my word. Combustion chamber, combustion, burning. And they burn the hydrogen, which is brought up from the bottom here. And they burn it with oxygen, which comes in from the one and only conduit that actually breaches the surface of the structure. They burn it together. That causes steam. Steam is basically water vapor. The water vapor condenses throughout the entire structure, not just here, because it's blown up into the one shaft that doesn't breach the surface, eventually condensates there and drips down. Now, as it's condensating, it's picking up the static electricity from the outside of the structure, which is throughout the entire, it's quarantined to the top 2/3 of the structure, primarily the top 1/3. Pulls that static electricity down through the drops and the condensation, the steam that's within the area, and basically brings it down. Water drips, comes down into the structure, and all that static electricity is going to quarantine into the Queen's chamber. I like to call it the arc chamber. Again, something we didn't know is when you look at old pictures before they drilled through that wall, there was basically a funky looking crack. But if you've ever worked with electricity, you know that was not really a crack. That's where electricity had been arcing through the wall to create that crack. It was burned and scorched. But we didn't know what electricity was back when we found this. This was, Edison was still working with DC power. We weren't working with shooting huge lightning bolts. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen where you can look at arc fires where a transformer, the big things you have at the end of your block, where when it pulls up, they get really big arcs of electricity. And those are nasty arcs of electricity. But basically that's what caused that arc there. Now, all this does is quarantines the static electricity into that room. Now, I'm not sure if they're pulling the static electricity off or utilizing it. This is still a gray area because until you look at the rest of the system, you don't really understand what's going on. Also, something we didn't know until the early 1900s is what's called heavy water. Heavy water is, instead of hydrogen and oxygen, is deuterium and oxygen. And deuterium is basically a hydrogen model with an extra neutron in there. They call it heavy because it's twice the molecular weight of water. It will sink in regular water. The Queen's chamber, if you notice, or arc chambers like to call it, has a pool. It's actually halfway down actually 2/3 of the way down that hallway. It goes down and there's a pool there. This will pool the heavy water into there and trap it within the system. The outside here is where, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. This is the entrance right here where they have that goes down into the inside there. You got the whole section down here, which I can go into if you really want all the details, but it comes up there. Normal water will spill off, run down, and get broken apart and keep going around. The oxygen, when they break hydrogen and oxygen apart, the oxygen is just a byproduct. It just forces its way out. But in the process of forcing its way out, it actually creates back pressure, which will push down on this water like a plunger, causing the elevation of the water within this structure to actually come up a little bit. Now that's only relevant because it makes this pool higher than the ambient or natural water level of the water outside, based on the fact that it's creating a pressure bubble as this air, oxygen, is fighting its way out of the system. The whole structure out here is designed to create an exact elevation because I'm sure they probably want an exact pressure to be made. Also, as all this, you may not know this, but a steam engine works because when you boil the water, it creates steam. Steam creates pressure. That's what we used to use to run trains and engines and all that other stuff. The inverse is true. When it condensates, it creates a vacuum. So the atmosphere within the insides of this structure, because it's quarantined off from the outside by the gaps of water, both in what they like to call the antechamber and the spillway over here, as this steam is condensating, it's creating a less than normal atmospheric pressure. So a vacuum. Now it's not going to be a pure vacuum, but it will be such that it's kind of like it is a less than normal ambient atmosphere. The structure over here is designed so that the same elevation, you've got another chamber over here, and this is below the water level. And we've got another section that comes out. This is going to allow something, again, we didn't know, is heavy water does what they call creep. It will basically evaporate into the light water and then condense at a lower elevation, just like water in a pond will evaporate and then condense into the sea. It will evaporate from the pond that's on, above the water level, above sea level, and then condense into the sea that's at sea level, because it wants to evaporate into the air and condense into the sea. It wants to condense at the lower part, and it wants to evaporate at the higher part. Well, heavy water basically does the same thing. And this structure is designed to catch that heavy water within it so that it's more refining it, just like you would distilling something. It's basically distilling it naturally, letting it evaporate naturally and condense naturally. And the whole structure in this section is actually like 3 or 4 levels, and it's all below that water level. Again, allowing it to be more refined, and I believe it's actually condensing the most heavy water here. Now, it's also collecting a gas. I don't know what that gas is, but I know it's a gas because the way the structure is designed, it actually has a section that comes up above the water level and comes back down and out the side. That's one of the things that Arturo showed us with that picture that he showed me, which was an awakening, where there's a vent hole on the side, and that is just below the water level, such that if somebody sat there with something and sucked it, this would trap the gas, because it can't push down below the water level. But if you put a little bit of pressure there, it would take that gas and pull it down and suck it out. So this is one of the products it's looking for. Now, I don't know if that product is helium, I don't know if it's hydrogen, or I don't know if it's what I like to call heavy hydrogen or D2 gas. This is where building this structure and letting it go to work would give you an answer. Just like if you saw a steam engine, but you didn't know that when you boil water, it turns into steam, what it would actually do, and why there's condensation areas, and why there's pressure relief valves, and why there's all these pieces to it. Some of those pieces will answer itself as the system goes to play. Now, other pieces are, with every system, nature wants a point of high pressure or high static electricity and a vent point. That vent point, the ground for the whole system, is actually what they like to call Osiris's shaft. It's the only point that even today goes down below the water table. If you look at Brent Forrester's videos, they showed.
As we well know, we've got Angel here, and you can see the drawings. And then suddenly the quality of the video, about an hour in, or an hour and 8 minutes in, just suddenly turns like this. And after that, all the stuff that Angel's explaining is not the easiest. We had the most craziest time getting on this hangout. People got on, it kept throwing us off. And then Angel had every time we spoke, Angel was fine. But every time we spoke, it reverbed back to him. Or I did to him and someone else. So we could hear our voices when we were talking back. We could hear it, our end. And there was just so many things going on all the time. And then it gets to this bit. Now look, listen, please everybody. I don't want anybody to go right now. I really don't. And it isn't that bad. But yeah, it's going to be a tiny bit annoying because he's going to be talking about drawings, right? On there. And you won't be able to see them properly because they put boxes up. And then he's going to slightly go in and out, you know, and so, yeah, but please, I don't want people to leave, I want people to watch, so hopefully you'll stay and just persevere with it, because I couldn't amend it, because he's got so much to say, and as this was happening every couple of seconds, you know, every 4 or 5 seconds, it was just too much. It isn't that bad, but, you know, just be aware when you're watching it from now on that there is a little bit, you know, that this is going on and he's fading in and out just a little bit. Okay, everybody, and I'm sorry about that, but it was not our fault, and we worked really hard to have this hangout, and it was actually great, you know, great hangout. We love Angel.
You go down there, and there's like 20 feet of crystal clear water down there. That's because you're going down below the water table. You know, you're in the middle of the desert, there's still water when you go going up. That would be the true water table. That is where, you put, as you move your finger closer to it, all those little rays of electricity go towards your finger, because your finger becomes to ground, because you're standing on the ground, and the static electricity within that ball wants to ground it, wants a release. So as you move your finger towards it, it gets its potential. The way this structure is designed, this is the actual potential to get to ground. What we're doing, and this is why I think they're also tapping the electricity, and why that arc is there, is because the niche chamber is slightly to the south, and the conduit that is the conduit is about 6 inches closer to the niche than this. Meaning that whatever the potential would have to get enough to jump to this conduit, if you give it a path of lesser electricity will always follow the path lesser resistance. You give it a path of lesser resistance and short that to either here or this spool. I'm not sure which until we follow in the conduits. It will give it a way to release that energy to here. I think it's more than just energy. I think it also might be releasing either the neutron or the electron. I'm not sure which of the two, or it may even be the proton. I don't know. This is where a physicist has to come. But the electricity in here will want to somewhere, just like an aluminum storm ball. When you move your finger towards it, it wants to get out of there. It's quarantined in there, and it wants to be released. Now, these are the pieces I know. I also know, because I've played with, at least done a lot of reading on what they used to call cold fusion, and now call CERN, low energy nuclear reaction. That's because fusion has a bad taste in people's mouths, just like free energy or other things. Nuclear reaction just means that some change will happen to the nucleus of the element. That would be either a thing from there, or the neutron switching over to a proton and becoming helium. Because nature, you have too much of something in one area, just like if you have too many female frogs, actually I think it's the other way. If you have too many male frogs, some of those frogs will actually convert to be female. This is just a big nature that if you get like 1,000 male frogs all in one pond, before long, some of them will start to become female, because nature does that. It says, hey, we need to have some females, otherwise the population isn't going to happen. Well, in nature, a bunch of just hydrogen molecules together, or a bunch of hydrogen molecules that are stripped of their electrons, so they just call them protons at that point. Some of them will convert to neutrons and then join with a hydrogen to become heavy water. Nature just does that. And that could be what this system is creating, the environment that allows that nuclear reaction to occur to create another element. I'm not going to say a new element, because we just may not know exactly what it is. And again, a physicist would. A physicist would say in this environment, in a low pressure, with a lot of static electricity and a lot of hydrogen, because you have an abundance of hydrogen. The hydrogen coming up here when joining with the oxygen from here, you're going to have more hydrogen than can join with the oxygen. And you're also going to have nitrogen, because there's 72% nitrogen within the air, 21% oxygen, and 1+% carbon dioxide. Or actually, it's just carbon. It would be carbon dioxide when you burn it with the carbon dioxide, but normally it's just carbon. Anyway, that's all out there in nature. So they have also in this environment ammonia built up. And this whole thing may be building and creating ammonia, ammonium, whatever you want to call it, the stuff you use to wash your dishes. Because ammonia is 3 nitrogens and a hydrogen. So I don't know what this environment will actually, I'm not a physicist, and I haven't set up a lab and experimented with it. I don't have that budget, don't have that knowledge. People at, UCLA or something like that, or Cambridge University, brainiacs over there, would sit there and say, oh, this does this, and that. In this environment, this would happen. Or you got to be careful, that hydrogen, you're going to get a big explosion, which is why they found explosions in the King's Chamber. All of this.
Can I say something?
Yeah, yes, of course.
The whole time that you were showing us that, they made the screen all blurry. We can hear it.
That is annoying.
But yeah, just to let you know that we'll hear it, but we won't be able to see it because it was all blurry.
Well, you can get the gist, and anybody that I'll have
Can
to
I just add something else?
Sure.
Sorry, you have to mute. Sorry, Angel. Yeah. I just wanted. We were talking earlier on then about the other little pyramids. What part did they play then? And you didn't. I don't know if I quite heard you say. I've heard you say before. They're positive, neutral, and negative. The 3 bigger ones. That's what you gathered.
Remember what I was going on about? How when you move your finger close to something, the aluminum, it has potential. Well, the natural ambient static electricity within this structure, the third structure, you need to give it a potential to ground, which is why you notice, if you look at it, exterior to the structure, you've got a structure which is nice, clean pyramid, and then kind of one that's like truncated and one that's truncated more. This would allow the ambient static electricity to have a potential to get to ground, but it's a controlled release, a controlled potential. Just like on this structure, you've got one that's truncated, and then it's nicer, and then it's nice. That's because here they're trying to make it so really the static would go onto the structure to off the structure. You look at the way it steps. Here it steps off. It's just like if you had an antenna standing, and then you had a shorter antenna next to it and an antenna next to it. The energy would eventually win to ground by jumping from one antenna to the other. So these are just a fact of nature. Something that, again, we really didn't play until we got to get the voltage of electricity up to a higher voltage, and we have to learn how it works, which is why you can't walk around inside one of the power station things. If you walk too close to a wire, you become the path of least resistance between the high voltage and ground, and hence you become a chicken fried steak. So this is what these structures are correct about what they're doing.
Just ask Amy. What do you make of that, Amy?
Wow, I'm just really mind blown by all of this. I feel like I should have been taking notes. I mean, I never even knew about like heavy water, or I think Angel said heavy oxygen, heavy hydrogen or something. I mean, I'm just mind blown by all of this. I can't even believe it. If we had learned this in school, I would be so fascinated. I think I'm going to have to go back and watch this and take notes or something on all of this, because it is just incredible. I just love it. Fascinated. Just fascinating. I mean,
that is one thing I've heard of people is when we learn the elemental scale, right? The scale of elements.
Yeah.
You learn it and you see it as, let me get the nice picture of it.
Yes.
or wait, the periodical table. Let me pull it up on my little phone here. I wish I had another little tablet so I could hold it. Give me 1 second here. This thing is jumping all over. It's not being nice to me.
No, we might not see it because it's a bit fuzzy.
Periodical table of. Come on. Now it's not.
Well, when you started talking about the 3 pyramids, all it did was go all fuzzy.
Okay, you've seen that, right?
Yes.
Okay, that is basically if I told you the colors were red, green, blue, yellow, orange, and brown. Okay, if I told you all the colors of the rainbow were 8 colors, which is what Crayola originally wanted you to think, right? However,
Yes.
there's an extended periodical table. Because, like, you are correct. Oxygen has oxygen 14, oxygen 15, oxygen 16, oxygen 17.
Yeah.
Because if I can find the right one, every element has variations where they'll have protons or extra protons or extra something, and they have an actual bigger periodic table, which I had this prepared. But when you look at it, it looks like, let me get it, my cleaner thing, which I have misplaced. There it is. There it is. Where it'll look like hydrogen down here actually has.
You can't really see it, Angel. It's that fuzzy.
All right, then I will look at trying to find what I had. Here it is. I had it in a picture because I was showing one of our friends about right there. Okay, that is the extent in there that you see through the periodic table. That is what is on the one that is normal there. But on either side of it, you have either has extra protons, and I can expand on it. You can see it. It's very detailed. So this is the full. The blue line is what is in your normal periodic table that you see on your list. But to of it, you have what they call, or what is the radioactive versions of everything, which will either decay or stuck in protons or neutrons, electrons to become stable. They're unstable.
Oh.
Full ones are the ones they put on the periodic table that they show your normal kids.
Right.
Which is the other periodic table that we were just looking at. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the full periodic table, which shows everything. So, for the element, there are some that are like carbon. You know how they do carbon dating? In nature, carbon settles to carbon 14, I think. But in nature, there's carbon 17 and carbon 16, carbon 15 and carbon 13 and carbon 12.
Wow.
Will, to be happy, will stabilize to carbon 14. Carbon 17 will decay down to carbon 14. They assume that there's 1 per 22 million parts of carbon 17 naturally in the environment. But if you trap it inside a little, air pocket inside a rock, 100,000 years, the carbon 17 will decay and become carbon 14. So they look at the percentage of carbon 17 within the bubble, and the less of it they find, the longer they think that air bubble was trapped. That's carbon dating.
Wow.
Which assume there was a certain percentage of carbon in the environment when that air bubble was trapped, which we know because when Mount St. Helens blew and a couple of other things, that sometimes nature puts more carbon 17 into the environment than would otherwise normally be in the ambient given day. So when they're sometimes looking at these bubbles of air, they're misassuming what the start percentage was. So carbon dating is kind of a guess, not a science.
Oh, I see.
You don't know what it was to begin with. You
Yes.
tell based on K what it is now.
Right.
But they sure do like to play that crap game, and they sure do like to throw these numbers out because it makes them seem smart.
Yes. Oh, thank you. That was a great explanation.
Right. But naturally, hydrogen has 3 versions of it though. They call them isomers, I believe is their name. You got hydrogen, deuterium, and what they like to call tritium. Tritium is the magic element, which actually it's not very magic. It glows, and I have a strip of tritium, which is slightly radioactive. People bring an X-ray at the airport because they'll get really upset about it. But and also that stuff they put in watches, that the watches would glow. That was okay. That's slightly radioactive. Over time, those watches get duller and duller and duller because as they radiate, they get down to what is their comfortable level. Just like uranium and stuff like that would radiate. Phosphorus will radiate over like 10 years. Again, I think it's 20 years, where like uranium over 100,000 years.
Wow.
So this all has to do with it going down to what its comfort level is. And this again is where a real physicist that understands exactly how these elements would play together would be able to give me a much better idea of what exactly could be the highest potential of what is occurring. And the other thing that I love to point out is we only know what we know. If I told you I throw a piece of wood onto a fire and it burns, well, then that's what you know. But do you know you can throw water onto a fire and it will burn too?
Wow.
If it's hot enough, which is why they, on chemical fires and stuff like that, fire departments have to go with foam as opposed to water.
Oh, that's
when you spray.
Yes.
Right now, our high performance like F-18s and stuff like that, what they do is the engine that's blowing out like 3,000-4,000 degrees worth of fire out of the back of it, they put water into there, and the water boils so quickly, breaks into its elements, and then burns back together simultaneously and creates a bigger boost.
Hey, Angel.
Wow.
Yes.
So you just have to mute a bit because otherwise it echoes too much. Sorry. Water burns higher than most of the other things, doesn't it? And that's why aeroplanes do so well.
I think it's 1,800 degrees Celsius.
So it's really hot. As you've just muted for a moment, Patricia, is there anything you want to say? Listening.
No, it's all fascinating. Thank you, Angel. I do like your information.
Yeah, just things like the periodic table. We don't know what we don't know because we weren't really told it. It's stupid. They dumb things down in the schools because if they really told that there are multiple types of hydrogen and multiple types of helium and multiple. See, actually, right here on this list, they're showing me 4 types of hydrogen. I don't zoom into it there. I don't know if you can see it. Hydrogen 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the list. Now, I only mentioned 1, 2, and 3. 4 may be completely unstable. Like nature really doesn't exist in nature. Just like we keep creating new elements because we're using things like the LHC and other environmental chambers where we are creating abnormal or not of ambient like here. I can't create tritium in my backyard. I could if I had a vacuum chamber, boiling chamber, and a lot of electricity, stuff like that, because they have to create an unusual to make this element come to being, which is what this structure is doing, is creating an abnormal environment, an environment which is a controlled environment, different than that which is outside the structure. So I believe they are creating not necessarily an element, but a derivative of an element or a compound, which later be used. They're refining it and cycling it down to just get that one particular element, or maybe getting multiple elements, maybe getting hydrogen, and the way it separates in multiple gases out of the structure. Because while they're there, let's get some of this and some of that. It's all at play. Let's quarantine and pull them out. Just like how we create liquid nitrogen. You don't create nitrogen just by creating liquid nitrogen. You have to keep putting it through a multiple phase thing so that one cools the next, cools the next, cools the next, until you get all down to the colder liquids that are, almost Kelvin. You have to do them in stages. Use one to cool the next one, and if you look at how they do it, I think it's quite amazing, because I really like science. But I think this structure, as it is taught in school, throws science out the window, because they don't want to ever. People years ago had more knowledge about the world we live in, the elements around us, and them and use them than we did to today. And again, 400 or 500 years ago, when these people were originally coming up with stories about the structure, they didn't know about heavy water. They didn't know about hydrogen. They didn't know about helium. We didn't even know about helium. Yeah.
Sorry, you have to mute just while I say it. Sorry. We don't actually know what our history is anymore. We can't tell. Some of my research shows that when we went over to America, they just took the immigrants, quarantined them, and took their children. Like our history is so lied about, we can't put our finger on it to how old it is. I only think I don't know, just got this feeling that this reset, we have not been here that long. Not really.
Have I told you about my BCE, CEAD, BC dilemma? I guess not. Well, I went to the Pompeii exhibit, Los Angeles, half a decade ago, and I actually wanted to see the Hidden Scrolls, or the Dead Sea Scrolls. They didn't have the Dead Sea Scrolls. They had pictures of Dead Sea Scrolls, like that were made out like as if you were looking at a skyline of the New York something. But they didn't actually let you see the Dead Sea Scrolls of them. And if they did, they showed you a and then told you what it translated. But the part that irked me while I was there is they kept using the term BCE and CE, before current era and current era. And when they were saying it, said, oh, this happened at 0400 BCE. And I'm like, well, 0400 CE, which would be, in my definition, about 6,400 years, because our current era started about years ago. But they want to truncate, they want to get rid of BC and AD, an Anno Domini, year of our Lord, because get rid of those terms, because, well, they can't have church terms in there, especially when
that's what they do. That's what they do in the school system as well.
Right.
They can't say it. Yeah.
They're not being.
Can I ask something, Angel? Angel, when you're not doing the whiteboard, can you just turn your camera off, because it's just so blurry? You might have better bandwidth then. Okay. Sorry, if you want to show us something, put it back on. Yeah, now talk.
Okay. the BCE and CE, or vice versa, AD and BC, and BCE and CE. They are truncating 4,000 years off of history, because of current history, when you look at it, you go back to the Vikings and all that, kind of say that everything they can.
You know what that's about, don't you?
Whoever
whoever won made the history. They changed the history because they won.
But what irks me is that we're changing the zero date of time, just like we changed 0 point of the prime meridian to go through Greenwich, England, because they, the people in England had their tiny dicks. And we've taken ourselves off of reading time from the sky, time from a nuclear clock, either in Canada, the naval base in the United States, I believe, are the two.
Can I ask you something, Angel?
Yeah.
Did they link up to star forts, the pyramids? Just asking, or nothing? You don't think they had anything to do with each other?
I don't really believe that's 100% true, because when you look at the Rand belt alignment, they say it would be very close about 12,000 years ago. However, not close enough that I think that these guys would have made that mistake. I believe the alignment is much more in alignment with communication. It is in alignment with the Orion's belt. I believe that's a slightly another herring that they have you chase.
Do you think the pyramids link up to the stars then, or they're just separate things?
Well, I'm not going to dismiss that when you multiple pyramids along the whole Nile, that they do have an uncanny influence of the stars of the Milky Way galaxy, or the Milky Way stripe. I don't believe is actually, because I'm much more better than I am the heliocentric model. I believe what we like to call the Milky Way. I don't think it's the plane of the galaxy. I just think it's it is a concentration of stars up there. And if you lay that Milky Way on the Nile, the pyramid will align with several of the more prominent constellations. So I do think it's an uncanny relationship. I can't say that's why they were created that way, but I do think it's an uncanny relation.
Okay, thanks for that. Angel, we've been going for an hour and a half now. Amy, do you want to say anything else?
Oh, I just wanted to say that this has just been really fascinating and very informative, and I feel like I've really learned something. But my mind isn't the most scientifically geared, but I have to be interested in it, and if I'm interested, I can really follow it a lot better. And this was just so interesting, and I really feel like I'm going to go back and look, at study what Angel was showing us and telling us about, because I just find it absolutely fascinating. I love to learn new things, and especially when it's presented in such an interesting and fascinating way. So I have really enjoyed this hangout. So thank you.
Oh, Amy, even with all the storing. Oh, Angel, that's a nice credit to you. Patricia. Oh. Thank you, Amy.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Patricia?
Yeah, sorry. I was just waiting for Amy to finish. Yeah, always fascinating, like I said before. Thank you, Angel, for coming on and sharing your knowledge. And Amy, love you, Angel, love you, Karen.
Love you too, Patricia. And yes, thank you, Angel, so much.
I feel like I'm cutting him off, really, but oh yes, that's his other favorite topic, isn't it? Yes. He's silent at the moment. Yeah, Angel. Is there anything else that you're doing in the near future? Yes, we know that you'd like to talk about that one. Is there anything else that you'd like to say? You know, obviously, because I'm just feel like I've cut you off, but um, it's not been it's easy with you. You're a brilliant person, but the hangout's been a little bit difficult this evening. Thanks, Google. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that you're doing or you'd like to add?
That is kind of my side project, Play Toy. I'm always looking for videos on structure or on the plateau, things that relate to it, information that supports my hypothesis is, and I have to use the word theory, because a theory is after you have a hypothesis and you've done an experimentation, and then the theory is what you're left with when the experimentation points you in that direction. I haven't really done experimentation. It's technically not a theory, but that's much more true to science than these other people say they have a theory and throw out things that don't even marry the structure. So their theory can be easily disproven, hence they never went through the stage.
I know that you said that in a way you don't need to go there to get your information, but wouldn't you just love to go there and talk to the guides and talk to the people who live there and say, "Can't spill the beans, what you know, the extra bit." Wouldn't you love to speak to those people?
Only if actually had reign of town. It would be like going to see Asbury Hill and having a fence around it and not being able to go there, or going to Stonehenge and able to look at it from 100 feet away and not go there to actually look through the rocks to see the alignments for yourself, to touch the rocks, to see the cement moldings under, see the patchwork on it. So I'm happy when people like Forrester and a couple of the other people pay the, bribe people with a few $1,000s and take their cameras into spots that you wouldn't be able to go to. And I don't have thousands to throw at bribing people unless I got 30 people to be there and I had the tour, and then I could throw at them and we'll be able to get the perks. But I want to go into areas that they probably would not want me to go. I have no credentials. I'm not going to let some weirdo that doesn't work for a college.
You know something? I just thought about something. So you have to mute yourself just for a minute. You know, like all the films that they've got, the Raiders of the Lost Ark and everything, they have to go get something, but they're always trying to get out of it. Whereas it'd be the other way around for Angel. All he wants to do is get in it. Come on, let's go in.
Now, if I had Hawassa's job and I got it and I got to go with places, and I would love to actually tape off certain sections and put fans to see if I can air through the conduits that I believe exist between the grotto, above the king's chamber, and to show that there's a conduit there or putting a stink bomb down there and going up top and being smell it or something, then maybe the experiments I would like to actually do. But let me do that. Number one, because it would blow their tomb theory out of the water. Number two, they're not going to let me do it. They just won't. They don't trust people right now. People have taken chips of rock when they're not supposed to, or put graffiti where they're not supposed to, or crapped in the corner or something like that. Just won't let people go to the places we need to have access to get the true answer.
Yeah, I actually had something else I wanted to ask you, but it's gone out of my brain now because I actually tried to think about it and it's gone now. Angel, it's always an absolute pleasure talking to you, and it's just you've got your own YouTube channel, don't you? And I've copied a few of your videos, and you obviously try and explain it, and you've got your T-shirt with all your stuff on. Yeah, it would be great if there's enough money to that Angel could build his own pyramid, or even go over there and work out what it is.
Oh yes, that would be so cool. I hope
But
that can happen.
But I'd like to say, thanks very much, Angel, for sharing with us. Even if I think on the replay they're going to struggle to see what you were saying, but at least they can hear it. It's just so annoying. Someone will say you need to go somewhere else. That's what they'll tell me. Go to another, place. The icons are fine, but once you put the videos on, it's just awful now. But it was fine for a while, and then it didn't. But anyway, Patricia, mwah, Angel, mwah, Amy, mwah, and chat room. I hope
Oh,
everybody has found this interesting, and thank you so much for your time. And
yes, thank you. Thank
No
you.
problem. And I hope time to research what I'm saying about the elements and the periodic table and how it's the truncated.
oh yeah, that's it. I thought about it.
Just
Angel,
to
listen.
learn all the things that they're not telling you.
Sorry, so I was just thinking, the bit when you said that they did the waves, and they mapped out that it's all like frequencies and things, and like a music thing. You imagine they were doing that in the 1800s, so they tell us. I mean, even then they were far more advanced, even then, than we are now. Aquariums, trains in the sea, palaces, uh, Eden projects, windmills. These people, it might have been slightly different to what we think, or maybe they're still lying to us. But like, to be able to map all these things out, like Stan was showing us 1800s, and he was showing us a 360 picture that they'd done in the 1800s. They could manage to do that then. They've so lied to us about our history and how advanced these people were before. They're so lied. But we could go on forever. Thank you so much. And we're going to end the hangout now. Anything else you want to say, Angel? Oh, okay. He's going to. Sorry, everybody. If everybody understands, right now, the whole thing's glitching. We're out of tune. The hangout doesn't want to play. It's all going blurry. So that's why if there's any difference, that's the way it is. It's because of the hangout. It's not because of us.
I'm wondering if it's something to do with the weather, because the weather here in the United States on the East Coast is terrible. It's like freezing rain.
It could be, but most hangouts do it. Anybody who's sharing.
We were supposed to have snow, but it just is freezing rain.
Do you know what? That was really strange. I was up really late making a video, and what it was is my heating wasn't on. Yeah, okay. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I had my dressing gown on, but I felt okay. And then it was a bit like it got extremely cold, like for about half an hour before the sun came up. And the next thing is I hear people chiseling the ice off their cars. I don't think it was there before because I didn't have my heating on. Yeah, it was a little bit chilly, but it wasn't, oh my God, it's freezing. And it wasn't like that. It was really weird how I think that ice just came in half an hour.
That is so weird. Yes. Because it was freezing here last night, and then they were calling for snow, but it never materialized.
I saw the warnings. I saw that.
Yeah.
Like this guy said, basically, 3/4 of America is going to have really bad snow down to Texas and along. And you're like, wow.
We haven't had a good snow in so long.
I know, but that's miles. That's thousands of miles of cloud.
I know. It really is. I know. But sometimes I like to have a nice snow if I don't have to go anywhere, and you can just stay in the house.
I know what you mean. Well, for me, it's like I wouldn't be able to go to work, so I'd have to stay at home. So it'd be like a day off. But
yes.
yeah, I don't like snow. It's just havoc for everyone. Angel, has he got what he wants to show us? I think he has.
Yes, is this thing right here, which can be found easily at surface.giza.ws. But this guy, Mr. Bergdahl, is people who got to explore this structure back in I think it was the 1800s. Now, he had like half a dozen guys climbing up using measuring tape, measure these steps, where the gentleman that did it for one of the colleges, I think it was like a PI or something like that, he did it using a stereo drone with a stereo camera. And he got a much better accurate thing because he got the whole surface of it. This is just the averages along this. But you can easily see when you look at it there are clear waves.
Don't move it a minute, Angel, because it's like blurring out. Don't move it.
Can you see the waves?
Yeah.
Now these waves line up with certain portions on the inside of the structure. So there is a correlation between the waves on the outside and the features on the inside. So when we actually map it, some of that may be just pure communication, or some of it may be that they needed pressure points of in order to get functions to occur.
We do see a lot of those patterns, don't we, on other things. There's a wall somewhere, isn't there, that's done the same thing. It goes in and out, and it's a pattern in the wall, and they've built the wall all in a wave round. And when I look at some of those Regency buildings, you know, even those, they built them in a wave. Like, there was no reason they had to make the building almost into an S shape, but they did. Same thing, it's got like patterns in it. I just star forts are the same things. They look the same things with, you know, the shapes they are, that something else was going on, and they were by water as well. But obviously we could go on for hours. Yeah, thank you very much for showing that to us. If everybody could see that, but you can find it out. He said what it was, and a lot of people do know about that anyway. The wave and the movement.
Surface.giza.ws, like surface of the structure, surface.giza.ws.
Thank you, Angel. Anyway, we are going to end now, but Angel, don't just jump off. We'll say goodbye to you off air. But for on air, I hope everybody enjoyed this, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you, everybody on the Hangout.
You love everyone.